Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing with some shading of faces in my Use It Up journal. So these are two pages that I've had in my Use It Up journal for ages. They're using the original Dina Wakley collage face tissues, just the small ones. And I had these two pages with the blues on it that I stuck them into. And I haven't actually opened my Use It Up journal in a long time, so I opened it up, found these two pages, and it was a great way to warm up. It's also a great way to explore with some new materials that I haven't used very much, to try some different techniques. So I'm using my Posca paint, my Posca pastels to colour in these images. So the Posca pastels are I think they're a wax crayon. I don't think they're oil based because they're very dry to the touch. They don't smudge like an oil pastel. When I've done a little bit of research into them, I think they're very like the original Neo colours, not the water soluble ones, but the original ones. They're not quite the same as scribble sticks. They're not quite as hard. They do go on a little bit easier. And obviously scribble sticks are water soluble as well. So it's similar type, but not water soluble. I have put some hand sanitizer on my mat because I was trying to see if I put alcohol on it, if it would blend together more easily. It kind of worked, but you know, no noticeable difference with what I'm doing. But you can see with the color that's going down, it colors beautifully. It's very, very opaque. It's really easy to draw with. They're really thin pastels. They're about the same width as a color pencil, and they're really strong. So being that thin, I was really concerned about using them, coloring in, and breaking them, and I haven't done that so far. They've been really strong and worked really well. The other thing that I really love about them is that you can obviously overlap the colors and shade really easily. So that's why I was playing with shading faces, because I wanted to overlap the colours. And again, when I've done that with oil pastel in the past, you scrape up some of the pastel that's already down, whereas with these you don't. It goes over it really easily. You'll also notice that I'm able to draw on the pastels with the Posca paint pens. They go over beautifully. I'm using the Stabilo All pencil over the top. That's sitting on top of it really nicely, and you can actually use colour pencils on top as well. So it's just a really, really user-friendly medium that I've had lots of fun with. They come in a beautiful range of colours. You can see there, and particularly in the close-up at the end, that the yellow shows up against the other colours too. So it's just fun that you can overlay them. So once I've done one face, I'm going back in and doing the next face. So again, starting off with the same colours, and it's quite interesting sort of doing this. They're quite pigmented backgrounds, those dark blues and the light blue there. You can sort of see it's got a real blue tone to the face, and yet these pastels are sort of really going over the top of it quite well. And with not too much effort, you can sort of cover in the whole bit. So going in, she's got a stripy dress this time, using the white to blend it together, and again, that's working really well. I'm not a big fan of, I don't use white very often as a blending, but I was quite impressed with how it worked on this. Pulling it all together again. Again, I'm going in with my lighter coloured Posca paint pastels. Sorry, try and get my words out. I'm actually using, I suppose, more traditional colours for me than I do in previous videos. If you see me doing some shading videos, I tend to use sort of pinks and yellows and blues to do this, but I wanted to try and make something more-ish realistic, and I'm using sort of the browns and peachy tones from my skin tones. I was finding it fun to do. I ended up having to put a little bit of purple on her skin because I pulled in some purple from her face, or from her hair, sorry, but I actually liked how that worked. Again, you can see I'm putting the paint pen over the top, and it's sitting really nicely. And again, because they've got really fine, it's such a fine pen, or pastel, sorry, you can get quite fine lines on it. So again, just fixing everything up with my Stabilo oil pencil. I was going to say Posca paint pen. A Stabilo oil pencil over the top in the black. And that sort of helps bring out those black lines from before. Now, the only thing was my white pen wasn't working perfectly on this, and the reason for that is my white pen has actually run out. So it was a little bit scratchy than I was expecting. I have tried over the top of these with gel pens and it hasn't worked, so I do suggest using the acrylic paints over the top. It just worked a little bit better for me. Now I'm going in and popping on some sayings. So these are some cardboard sayings from, I think it's an Australian company, Paper Rose, that I'm just chopping up into bits to stick onto the bodies. And I quite like doing this with saying phrases, whether it's either stamped out or in a book, but just cutting them up into pieces sort of gives you a little bit more freedom of where you're putting it on the page. It means you can spread it out a little bit more, just so it looks a little bit more balanced than sort of one straight line across the middle of the page. So when I finished my images, I really liked them, but they weren't quite finished. So I wanted to do something in the background. So I've got this big stencil from Stencil Girl. I think it's called For the Love of Circles or Playing with Circles. I'm not 100% sure of the name. I'm just going in with some white paint to do the background. So I'm being really careful not to go over my image where I've painted. I'm just sort of going around with my sponge. But the reason I really like this stencil is because it's got all these different shapes and sizes of circles. So you've got that repetition of pattern, but you've got a little bit of difference with it as well, and it kind of ties everything together. The only bit that really bugged me was that little break in the middle. It just so happened that it was kind of on the middle of the page, so it looked a bit 2 pages. So I've just gone in with a little bit of white paint to sort of paint it up. It doesn't quite make sense with the whole stenciling, but that's okay. It means I can also go in, and if there's any bits that I missed with my stenciling, I can go back in and fill up. But just by having that little bit of stenciling in the background, it kind of just finished off the page. It was looking a little bit stark before, and now it sort of ties itself together a little bit better, or so I think anyway. But this is just a fun way to play with some new materials I had in my craft room. Low pressure. It was my Use It Up journal. If I didn't like it, I didn't like it. But I was really impressed with how they all work together. And for someone who doesn't colour in very often, I tend to go straight to paint. It was actually nice to have something that was lots of pigment in it and went on really easily, and it was pretty easy to get into the thin spaces as well, which is one of my, when I'm colouring in with oil pastels, I find they're always a bit chunky, so I'm not able to get the fine lines that I really want. So I hope this was useful to you. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.